Joining us right now to talk more about all this is Bob Lutz. He is the former vice chairman with General Motors. He's now a CNBC contributor. And Bob, it's great to have you with us.
Good to be here. Thank you.
You know, we were just talking to Russell Wilson, and he said he's never seen anything like this in his 31 years in terms of the shutdown with sports. You've got a little more experience than that. How would you compare this to things, or is this unique?
Well, it's fairly unique, but don't forget that during World War II, the automobile industry was shut down from 1941 through 1945. And while the business may be off 20 to 25% right now, that still leaves the other 75%. And I've been talking to former colleagues at General Motors, and they say, well, it's time to cut fixed costs, reduce spending, prevent cash outflow as much as possible, probably put some future products on hold. But it's as was pointed out, some of the country is doing business okay, and a lot of the country is not as affected by COVID-19 as, say, the two coasts in the Northwest. And while business is off, but dealers are still selling cars online and making deliveries, then other parts of the world, which also count for the global business, like China, which is a huge factor, has apparently passed the peak of COVID, is seeing a reduced number of new cases, and the automobile business there is back almost fully on stream. So I think while it's unfortunate, one of these unforeseen events where I don't think anybody alive today has seen anything quite like this, not triggered by war and not triggered by some sort of financial catastrophe, but triggered by nature. So it's kind of new for everybody, but it'll do some damage for a few months. But the large corporations are well equipped to handle this. They've got a lot of cash on hand. They'll be conserving it, and they're going to sort of join this national almost war effort, almost a repeat of the Arsenal for Democracy days in the early 40s, as they start producing medical equipment. So all in all, It's sad. It's very bad. You feel for the people who are momentarily losing income, but we'll get by this, and the automobile industry will come out the other end just fine with a lot of pent-up demand.
You mentioned that GM and other companies are actually going to start producing ventilators. What did you think of the president's decision to enact the Defense Production Act? Was it necessary?
I don't know. I think it certainly surprised people at GM because they were already working as fast as they could with Ventec. But who knows what he was thinking? It was probably right to invoke it. It speeds things up. So I'm not going to judge one way or another. But one thing's for sure. The automobile industry working together with the medical profession and the government will get the job done and will start producing ventilators in an astonishingly short time.
Bob, you mentioned that these companies have cash on hand, that they'll be able to conserve that cash. You don't think the automakers, any of the three, would need to actually get some government assistance like we're seeing with the airlines?
I don't think so, because the car makers up to this point, at least the ones I'm familiar with, had a pretty good cash reserve, and let's not forget that the positive, unlike '08, where you had this perfect storm of $4.25 gasoline prices, a collapse in demand, not 20% off or 30% off, 50 to 60% off. That's when you run out of cash. That's where GM was hemorrhaging like $3 or $4 billion a quarter. But it's not that bad this time. From other parts of the world, cash is still coming in. Cash is still coming in from the U.S. The spare parts business is still running more or less as normal. So it's bad. It's difficult. but it's not a calamity, and everybody can see the end of it. You know, whether it's the end of April or mid-May, but at some point the number of new cases will decline, and everything will get back to normalcy. And don't forget, this demand that the people right now that are not buying cars, they're not going away. They're just waiting. They'll be back with a vengeance. There will be a very, very strong bounce-back effect, which will, of course, benefit everybody.